There is a creature in this universe that makes entire armies run. Not because she is powerful, not because she is dangerous, but because nobody, not one single living soul, has ever tried to understand her. Every civilization that discovered her existence put out one simple order. Run. Do not look at her. Do not speak to her. Do not go anywhere near her. And for hundreds of years, every single species in the known galaxy obeyed that order. Every species. Except one, humans, and more specifically, one human man. One ordinary man who did something so simple, so unexpected, so completely against every survival instinct in the universe, that it changed the course of two entire worlds forever. He kissed her. Not as a trick, not as a dare. He kissed her because he saw something nobody else was willing to see. And what happened next? Nobody was ready for it. Tonight, this story is going to take you somewhere you have never been before. You are going to meet Vela, the alien vampire woman that every species in the galaxy feared. You are going to walk beside a human named Marcus, a man who had every reason to run and chose to stay instead, and you are going to witness the exact moment that a single act of human courage rewrote the laws of fear itself. This is not just a love story. This is a human story. Let me show you exactly how this happened. The year was 2387. Humanity had been traveling the stars for almost 200 years by then. Humans had walked on 47 different planets. They had made contact with over 30 alien civilizations. They had built space stations, trade routes, and communication towers across entire solar systems. But there was one planet that every single map in the human fleet had a red warning marker on. Planet Morvith. The warning read, "Do not land. Do not approach. Do not make contact." No further explanation was given. For most human explorers, that was enough. A red marker meant stay away. A red marker meant danger. A red marker meant whatever was down there was not worth the risk. But for Marcus Cole, a red marker meant something completely different. It meant a question nobody had answered yet. Marcus was 31 years old. He was not the tallest man on his crew. He was not the strongest. He was not the one with the most medals or the most missions completed. He was a mid-level scout for the Human Exploration Corps, a job that basically meant he was the first one sent somewhere new to check if it was safe. He had curly brown hair that never sat flat no matter what he did. He had a habit of tapping his left knee when he was thinking. And he had a reputation among his crew for asking too many questions. His captain had told him once, in front of everyone, "Cole, your problem is you can't let a thing alone. You keep pulling at threads that are better left alone." Marcus had nodded politely, and then immediately gone back to pulling at threads. That was just who he was. So when the fleet received new orders to chart the outer regions of the Morvith system, not the planet itself, just the surrounding space, Marcus did what Marcus always did. He started researching. He pulled every record he could find about Morvith, and there were not many. Most files on the planet were sealed or marked classified. The ones he could access were old. Some were hundreds of years old, filed by alien civilizations that had encountered the planet long before humans even left Earth. But one thing was consistent across every single record. Every report, no matter who wrote it, no matter which species submitted it, no matter what year it came from, every single one contained a warning about the same creature. They called her different names in different languages. The Keth called her the Hollow Queen. The Vryn called her the Blue Death. The Solari, one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy, called her simply the one who should not be approached. But the humans who had accessed older records had given her a simpler name. The alien vampire woman. Marcus read everything he could find about her. She was described as tall, blue-skinned, with large black horns that curved upward like twin blades. Her wings were enormous, dark and leathery, with glowing electric blue lines running through them like rivers of light. Her eyes, every record agreed, were completely white. No pupil, no iris, just white, like two full moons set inside a face. She wore dark armor that looked like it had grown out of her own body. She had long black hair and full lips, and a face that, and Marcus noticed this detail in nearly every record, was described as beautiful. Even the species that feared her admitted she was beautiful. That stuck with Marcus. Because when something is truly monstrous, when something is ugly at its core, people don't describe it as beautiful. They just describe the fear. They just describe the danger. But every record he read had that same strange line buried somewhere in it. Beautiful, but deadly. Do not approach. Marcus saved every file. He cross-referenced dates and locations. He built a rough timeline of her appearances across Morveth and the surrounding systems. And what he found was something that nobody had bothered to notice before. She had never, in any record, attacked first. Every single encounter that ended in violence, and there were not as many as Marcus had expected, had started with someone approaching her with a weapon, or someone trying to capture her, or a group of soldiers trying to drive her off a settlement. She had never hunted. She had never ambushed. She had never gone looking for trouble. The trouble had always gone looking for her. Marcus printed out his notes and brought them to his captain. His captain looked at the pages for about 10 seconds and then put them down. "Cole," he said, "we are not here to study the creature on Morveth. We are here to chart the outer belt and go home. Keep your focus." "But sir," Marcus said, "the records suggest she isn't actually." "Cole." "Yes, sir. Go chart the outer belt." Marcus went. He did his job. He flew his scout ship through the outer belt of the Morveth system and logged every asteroid, every gravitational reading, every piece of spatial data his instruments could capture. But the whole time, his eyes kept drifting down toward the planet, down toward the purple clouds that swirled over the surface like something alive, down toward wherever she was. He told himself he was just curious. He was always just curious. But something deeper than curiosity was pulling at him. Something that felt almost like recognition. Like he had been pointed at this planet his whole life and was only now close enough to see it clearly. On the third day of the Outer Belt survey, Marcus's instruments picked up something unusual, a localized energy spike, coming from the surface of Morveth. It was small, barely a blip on the screen, easy to dismiss as geological activity. Marcus looked at it for a long time. Then he looked at his captain's ship, flying about 800 kilometers ahead of him. Then he looked back at the energy spike. He made a decision that would change everything. He did not tell his captain. He did not file a report. He did not ask for permission. He turned his scout ship toward Morveth and he started to descend. His heart was beating fast. His hands were steady. And somewhere in the back of his mind, that quiet voice that every human carries, the one that whispers what comes next before it happens, was telling him that this was not a mistake. This was exactly where he was supposed to be. The purple clouds swallowed his ship whole, and below them, on a cobblestone street lit by flickering lanterns and bathed in the light of an enormous white moon, something moved in the shadows, something with white eyes, something that had not seen a human in a very long time. The village of Ornviel had been empty for 60 years. It used to be one of the busiest trading settlements on Morveth. Merchants from a dozen different species used to walk those cobblestone streets. Lanterns used to glow in every window. The smell of food and smoke and alien spices used to drift through the air every night. But that was before Viella came back. Nobody alive knew the full story of how she had ended up in Ornviel. The locals who had fled 60 years ago told different versions. Some said she appeared one night out of nowhere, landing in the center of the market square like something falling from the sky. Some said she had always been there, sleeping beneath the ground, and had simply woken up. But whatever the truth was, the result was the same. She arrived. And everyone left. Not because she asked them to. Not because she threatened them. They left because they knew what she was. And what she was, what they believed she was something that no living creature should be near. The Keth called her kind Vahari, the Ancient Ones, the Bloodwalkers, creatures that had existed since before most civilizations had learned to build fire. They were not vampires in the human sense, not the fantasy stories humans had grown up with. They were something older, something that fed not on blood exactly, but on life force, on the energy that living things produce simply by being alive. Just standing near one too long could leave you hollow. Or so the stories said. Whether Vela had ever actually drained anyone was not clear in the records. Most encounters ended before anyone got close enough to find out. People saw the wings, the horns, the white eyes, and they ran. And she let them. She always let them run. Marcus landed his scout ship on the outskirts of Ornvael as quietly as he could. He suited up, not in full combat armor, just his standard light explorer gear. He strapped a small sidearm to his hip, but left the safety on, and told himself he was not going to use it. He pulled on his communication earpiece and switched it to silent mode. He walked into the village alone. The streets were extraordinary. Even abandoned, Ornvael was one of the most beautiful places Marcus had ever seen. The buildings were tall and narrow, built from dark stone that had a faint blue shimmer to it. Moss and flowering vines had grown over everything in the 60 years since the village was empty, creeping up walls, spilling over windowsills, turning the whole place into something between a ghost town and a garden. The cobblestones under his boots were smooth and damp. The lanterns, somehow still burning after all this time, cast pools of warm gold light across the fog. Marcus walked slowly. He looked at everything. He listened. For the first few minutes, the village was completely silent except for the sound of his boots, and a low wind moving through the vines. Then he started to hear something else, a sound that was almost not a sound, more like a vibration, felt in the chest rather than heard with the ears. Low and steady, like a heartbeat slowed down to half its normal speed. He followed it. Around two corners, down a narrow side street, past a fountain that had long since run dry, its stone basin full of dark rainwater. And then, he saw her. She was standing at the far end of the street, completely still, with her back to him. Her wings were folded, but even folded they were massive, stretching up above her shoulders and out past the width of her body, the blue veins in them pulsing slowly with that same heartbeat rhythm he had been following. Her black hair fell all the way down her back. Her armor caught the moonlight and threw faint blue sparks across the walls of the buildings around her. She was not moving, but she knew he was there. He could tell. The way her head tilted, just slightly, not all the way around, told him that she had heard him the moment he entered the street. Probably before that. Probably the moment he landed. Marcus stopped walking. He stood very still. Every training protocol in the Human Exploration Corps told him what to do right now. Back away slowly. Do not make sudden movements. Do not speak. Return to your vessel and file a report. Marcus thought about all of that. Then he spoke. Hi, he said. It was the most ordinary word he could have chosen. Simple. Casual. The kind of word you use when you pass someone in a hallway, not the kind of word you say to a creature that entire civilizations had fled from. She turned around. And Marcus Cole, for the first time in his life, fully understood what all those records had been trying to describe. She was extraordinary. Not terrifying, not in the way he had expected. Yes, the horns were real, curving up from her forehead like dark blades. Yes, the wings were massive, the blue lightning inside them shifting and moving like a living storm caught in dark glass. Yes, her eyes were white. Completely, purely white, with no color in them at all. But her face was not the face of something monstrous. It was the face of someone who had been alone for a very, very long time. There was no aggression in it, no hunger, no threat. Just a long, quiet, unreadable expression, and beneath that expression, buried deep, something that looked almost like surprise. She had not expected him to speak. She had expected him to run. My name is Marcus, he said. I'm human. I came from up there. He pointed upward, toward the sky, toward the purple clouds, toward wherever his ship was. I read a lot about this planet, and about you, and I didn't think the records were completely accurate. Vela did not speak. She stared at him. I know that look, Marcus said. That's the look people give me on my ship when I say something they didn't expect. My captain makes that exact face about 3 times a week. She still did not speak. But she did not move away either. And for Marcus, that was enough to keep going. He took one step forward. Not aggressive. Not rushing. Just one step, the way you move when you want someone to know you are not a threat. Vayela's wings spread, just slightly. A warning gesture. Her white eyes locked onto him, and he felt it then, the thing the records had described. A pressure in the chest, a pulling sensation, like standing near something that could take something from you if it wanted to. Marcus felt it. And he stayed anyway. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said quietly. "And I don't think you're going to hurt me. Not unless I give you a reason." The pressure in his chest did not go away. But it also did not get stronger. Vayela watched him for a very long time. Then slowly enough that he could track every inch of movement, her wings folded back against her body. She had not run him off. That was the most important thing that had ever happened on planet Morveth in 60 years, and neither of them fully understood it yet. Marcus found a low stone wall near the dry fountain and sat down on it. He did not invite Vayela to sit. He did not gesture for her. He just sat down and started talking. He talked about Earth. He talked about what it looked like. The green and blue of it from space. The way the oceans caught sunlight. The mountains and cities and deserts and forests. He talked about growing up in a small town in the north of England, where it rained more than it didn't, where the sky was gray most of the year, and where his mother used to tell him that the gray days were the important ones because they taught you to appreciate the blue. He talked because silence felt wrong. Because the village was too quiet. Because he had a feeling. One of those feelings he had learned to trust over 31 years of following his instincts. That what Vayela needed more than anything was to hear someone talk to her like she was a person. And she stood there, about 20 feet away from him, and she listened. She did not move closer. But she did not walk away. Marcus kept going. He talked about his first flight into space, how terrifying it had been, how the planet got smaller and smaller below him until it looked like a marble, and how he had cried a little bit and was very grateful nobody saw it. He talked about the first alien planet he ever landed on. He talked about the 36 other planets after that. Then, because it felt like the right thing to say, he talked about the records he had read. "Every document I found about you," he said, "described you the same way. Something to be afraid of. Something to run from. But none of them, not one, gave you a name. They called you things, but not a name." He looked at her directly. "What's your name?" Silence. The wind moved through the vines. The lanterns flickered. And then, in a voice that was low and quiet and sounded like it had not been used in a very long time, she said, "Vayela." Marcus nodded. "That's a good name," he said. "Vayela. I'm Marcus. We already covered that. But now it feels more official." Something moved across her face. Not quite a smile. Not yet. But something loosened. Something that had been held very tight for a very long time loosened just slightly. And she walked to the fountain and sat on the opposite edge of it. Not next to him. Not close. But not 20 feet away either. Marcus did not make a big deal of it. He kept talking. Over the next 2 hours, in pieces and pauses and long silences, the story of Vayela came out. Not all at once. Not in order, but Marcus was good at listening. And he was good at asking the right question at the right moment. And slowly, the picture formed. Vayela was old, not in the way that humans were old, not measured in decades. She was measured in centuries. She had been alive for nearly 400 years. She had been born on Morveth when it was still a living populated world. When her people, the Vahari, still walked openly among other civilizations. But the Vahari were not well understood. They were feared, as they had always been feared. Their ability to draw life energy from nearby creatures was real, but it was not predatory. It was passive. It was like heat, like the way a fire warms a room without choosing to. The Vahari did not hunt. They did not drain. They simply existed, and their existence made other creatures uncomfortable. That discomfort had become myth, and myth had become story, and story had become law. The Vahari were driven out. One by one, planet by planet, their settlements were taken from them. Some were killed. Some went into hiding. Some flew so far out into space that they were never heard from again. Vayela had come back to Morveth because it was the last place she remembered being happy. She had been here for 60 years. Alone. She had not asked the village to leave. She had simply arrived, and they had gone, and she had not had the heart to follow them and beg them to stay. What would she have said? Please don't be afraid of me. They would have been afraid anyway. They always were. Marcus listened to all of this. He asked careful questions. He did not interrupt. He did not try to fix it. He just listened in the way that very few people in this universe had ever listened to Vayela, like what she was saying mattered. Like she was worth understanding. When she finished talking, the moon had moved across the sky. The night was at its deepest point. The village was as still as it had ever been. I want to ask you something, Marcus said. And you can say no. Vayela looked at him. Can I come back tomorrow? She said nothing for a long time. Then she turned her face away, toward the moon, and said, very quietly, the Keth send patrols through this system. If they find your ship, they will destroy it. That sounds like a yes with a warning, Marcus said. He thought he heard something. A breath. Maybe almost a laugh. Come back at night, Vayela said. Hide your ship in the eastern ravine. The patrols do not go there. Marcus stood up. He looked at her one more time, at the wings folded against her back, the horns outlined against the moon, the white eyes that now somehow did not seem empty at all. Good night, Vayela, he said. She did not answer, but when he looked back from the end of the street, she was still sitting at the fountain, watching him go. And for the first time in 60 years, someone was leaving Ornvael because they wanted to come back. Marcus came back the next night. And the night after that. And the night after that. He told his captain he was running extended geological surveys of the outer belt. He filed false coordinates with the fleet database. He hid his ship in the eastern ravine exactly as Vayela had instructed, and every night, for 7 weeks, he walked into Ornvael and sat near the fountain and talked with Vayela until the sky began to change color. The change in those 7 weeks was not dramatic. It was not the kind of change you could point to on a single night and say, that's when it happened. It was slow. Gradual, the way a season changes so slowly you don't realize it until one day you look up and everything is different. On the 5th night, Vayela sat beside him at the fountain instead of across from it. He did not comment on this. She did not explain it. It just happened. On the 12th night, she talked about her mother. Her voice was different when she talked about her mother. Lower, softer. Something in it that made the whole village feel more quiet. Her mother had been a healer. The Vahari had healers, not doctors in the human sense, but creatures who could sense damage in a living body and redirect energy toward it. Her mother had healed Keth children. Vryn elders. Solari travelers who came through Morveth injured and left whole, and still they had driven her people away. She never stopped trying to help them, Vayela said. Even when they came to take our homes, she tried to understand them. What happened to her? Marcus asked. Vayela was quiet for a long time. She forgave them, she said. That's what happened. She forgave them and she left. She said she could not survive in a universe that did not want her in it. Marcus did not have the right words for that. He was not sure there were any. So he did what he had learned. Over these weeks was sometimes more valuable than words. He stayed. He just stayed right there and let the silence sit between them without trying to fill it, without trying to make it easier, without pretending that what she had said was not as painful as it was. After a long time, Vayela looked at him. You are not afraid of me, she said. Not a question, an observation, like she was still trying to figure out how it was possible. No, Marcus said. Why not? Marcus thought about that carefully. He wanted to give her the honest answer, not the comfortable one. Because everything I've ever been told to be afraid of turned out to be something I just didn't understand yet, he said. Fear goes away when you understand something. And I wanted to understand you. Vayela looked at him for a long time. Then she said, Most creatures don't want to understand things that frighten them. They want to remove them. I know, Marcus said. That's their loss. Her wings shifted, not in warning this time, more like a shrug, or the alien equivalent of it. You are very strange for a human, she said. I've been told, he said, frequently, by my captain. 3 times last week alone. On the 22nd night, Marcus caught a Keth patrol drone scanning the ravine from high altitude. He had to keep completely still in his ship for 2 hours while it passed. When he finally got to the village, it was later than usual, and Viela was standing at the edge of the street, looking in the direction he always came from. She had been waiting. She would not admit it. When he arrived, she simply turned and walked back toward the fountain as if she had been standing there for completely unrelated reasons. But Marcus had been paying attention for 22 nights. He knew what waiting looked like on her face now. The patrols are getting closer, she said. I know. They are looking for something. Or someone. Probably someone, Marcus said quietly. Viela stopped walking. She turned to face him fully. Her white eyes were very steady. They have found out you are coming here. Marcus had already suspected it. Someone on his ship had noticed the survey coordinates didn't add up. Or the fleet had tracked his ship's location over the past weeks and put the pattern together. Either way, the quiet part of this story was ending. I have to report back to my ship tomorrow, he said. They'll want answers. Will you tell them about me? She asked. And the way she asked it quietly, with nothing in her voice except the bare question, told him everything about what she was really asking. She was asking whether he was going to be like everyone else. Whether, when it came down to it, he was going to hand her over, or report her location, or let the fleet make a decision about what to do with the creature on Morveth. Marcus met her eyes. No, he said. I won't. She held his gaze for a long time. Then she nodded, once, and walked toward the fountain. And Marcus followed her, as he always did, and they talked until the sky changed color, and neither of them said what they both already knew, that something between them had become something that neither of them had words for yet. His captain's name was Brennan. He was a broad man with a short gray beard and the kind of eyes that had seen 40 years of deep space, and trusted very little of what they found there. He did not raise his voice when Marcus came in. He never raised his voice. He just placed a printed tracking report on the desk between them and said, "Explain." Marcus looked at the report. It was a complete record of his ship's actual movements over the past 7 weeks. Every night, every descent, every landing in the ravine. He had known this was coming. He had spent the last week thinking about what he was going to say. I found something on Morveth, Marcus said. Something important. You found the creature, Captain Brennan said. Her name is Viela. Brennan looked at him for a very long time. Cole, do you have any idea what the Keth will do if they find out a human scout has been making contact with a Vahari? Do you know what kind of diplomatic situation that creates? Do you understand that the Keth have a standing extermination order on every Vahari still alive? I know, Marcus said. Then explain to me, Brennan said, very slowly, why you thought it was acceptable to put this crew, this mission, and the entire human-Keth trade agreement at risk because you wanted to visit a creature that every civilization in this system has classified as a threat. Because she isn't a threat, Marcus said. She has never attacked anyone who didn't come at her first. She has been alone on that planet for 60 years. She is not dangerous. She is just what, Cole? Marcus paused. She is just a person, he said, who nobody bothered to treat like one. Brennan stared at him. The ship's ventilation hummed. I am pulling you from the survey, Brennan said. You are confined to your bunk until we break orbit. We are leaving this system in 36 hours. And Cole, if you go near that planet again, I will file charges. Is that understood? Yes, sir, Marcus said. He went to his bunk. He lay on his back and stared at the ceiling and thought about the fountain. He thought about Viela sitting there in the moonlight with her wings folded, and her hands in her lap, and the white of her eyes catching the glow of the lanterns. He thought about her mother, who had forgiven a universe that rejected her. He thought about 60 years of silence in an empty village, and a creature that everyone agreed was beautiful, and everyone agreed was something to be feared. He thought about the way she had stood at the edge of the street, waiting for him to arrive, pretending she hadn't been waiting. At 0300 ship time, Marcus got up. He did not go to his ship. He knew the docking bay was locked and monitored. Instead, he went to the communications deck and sent a single encrypted message on a frequency he knew Vayela could pick up. She had shown him how, one of their first nights, telling him she monitored fleet frequencies to track patrols. The message was simple. They know. Fleet leaves in 36 hours. I am sorry I can't come back. You should go somewhere safe. Somewhere far. The Keth patrols are getting closer, and I don't want them to find you. Please leave Morveth. He sent it and went back to his bunk. He did not sleep. At 0600, his communicator buzzed, an encrypted response short, on the same frequency. I am not afraid of the Keth. He stared at that message for a long time. Then he typed back, I know you're not afraid of them. I'm afraid for you. There's a difference. The response came back almost immediately this time. No one has ever been afraid for me before. Marcus sat on the edge of his bunk and read that message 4 times. And then he did something that his captain had specifically told him not to do. He went to the docking bay. The lock on his ship had been changed. He expected that. But Marcus had been a scout for 9 years, and there was not a locking system in the fleet he could not bypass with 12 minutes and the right tools. He was in his ship and descending toward Morveth in 15. He did not have a plan. He had something else instead. He had a reason. Marcus ran. He ran from the ravine all the way to the center of Orn-Viel, faster than he had ever moved on this planet, his boots hitting the cobblestones hard, and the fog swirling around his legs, and the moon above him so large it felt like it was falling. He found Vayela exactly where he expected to find her, at the fountain. She was standing, not sitting. Her wings were fully spread, not in warning, but because she had clearly been about to fly. She had received his message about the fleet leaving. She had been getting ready to go. And she had stopped when she heard him coming. She looked at him when he arrived, breathing hard, hands on his knees. You were told to stay on your ship, she said. I know, he managed. Your captain will file charges. Probably. He straightened up, catching his breath. I needed to see you. Something moved through her expression. Something complicated that he had spent 7 weeks learning to read. Why? She asked. Marcus walked toward her, not running this time. Walking, slow and steady. The way he always moved when he wanted her to know he wasn't a threat. He stopped when he was close, closer than he had ever stood before. Close enough that the warmth from her wings reached him. Close enough that the blue light in the veins of her feathers lit up his face. He could feel that pressure in his chest again. The pull. The thing that everyone else had run from. He stood in it. And he did not flinch. I have been thinking, he said, about something you said 3 weeks ago. You said your mother forgave them. She forgave the ones who drove her people away. And you said it, like forgiving them was the last thing she did. Like forgiving them was giving up. Vayela watched him. Her white eyes were very still, and I've been thinking about how different that is from what you've done, Marcus continued. Because you didn't forgive them. You didn't give up either, you just stayed. Right here. On the last piece of the world that was yours. You stayed on it and you refused to let it be empty. You lit the lanterns. You kept the place alive. No one was here to see it, she said quietly. I saw it, he said. I see it. The pressure in his chest was stronger now. Right at the edge of uncomfortable. He knew. He understood deeply, scientifically, in every rational part of his brain, that this was the thing every other species had run from. This was the force the records described. The energy she could not help radiating. The thing that made her dangerous, or supposedly dangerous, to every living creature that came near her. Marcus breathed through it. He took another step forward. Marcus, she said. and there was something new in her voice that he had never heard before. Something that sounded almost like fear, not the fear other creatures felt around her, but her fear, the thing she was afraid of. And he understood what it was. She was afraid of wanting this. She was afraid that if she let herself want this presence, this warmth, this ordinary human man who kept coming back, it would be taken away. As everything had always been taken away. That allowing herself this one thing would only mean a sharper loss when it ended. "I'm not going anywhere," Marcus said. He said it simply, without drama, like a fact. Her wings were trembling slightly. The blue lines in them pulsed faster than usual. "They will make you go," she said. "Maybe," he said, "but I'll come back. You cannot promise that. Vela." He said her name carefully. The way he had learned made her pay full attention. "The whole time I've been coming here, you have been wondering if I'm going to run. Every night. I could see you wondering it, and every night I came back, and every night you were a little less sure that I was going to leave. So I need you to do what you've already been doing for 7 weeks. I need you to trust what you've already seen." Her wings stilled. The whole village was completely silent. The moon was enormous above them, so bright the shadows were sharp as blades on the cobblestones. Marcus reached up slowly enough that she tracked every movement, slowly enough that she could stop him if she wanted to, and he put his hand gently against her cheek. She did not pull away. Her skin was cool, smooth, not like human skin, something more like stone that had absorbed warmth from somewhere long ago, and still held a trace of it. Her white eyes looked at him from very close. Not a monster's eyes, not a predator's, just eyes. Old and tired and somewhere very deep, against all odds, still hoping for something. Marcus leaned forward, and he kissed her. Gently, briefly, one simple, quiet moment. The pressure in his chest did not drain him. It did not hollow him out. It did not take anything. If anything, if he had to describe what it felt like a door opening. When he pulled back, Vela was completely still. Her eyes were closed. The glow in her wings had changed color, not the sharp electric blue of tension and warning. Something softer. Something deeper. A blue that looked more like deep ocean water than lightning. She stood there for a long moment with her eyes closed. Then she opened them. She looked at Marcus Cole, this ordinary, stubborn, question-asking, rule-breaking human man, and for the first time in 400 years, Vela did not feel alone. "The fleet will see your ship in the ravine," she said, very quietly. "I know," he said. "They will send people down. Probably. What do you want to do?" Marcus looked at the village around them. The lanterns, the moss, the old stone buildings full of silence. Then he looked at her. "What do you want to do?" he asked. She considered this for a long time. She looked up at the moon. She spread her wings slightly, testing, feeling the air, the way someone stands up after a long time sitting and checks that their legs still work. "I want to stop being afraid," she said. "Of wanting things." "That sounds like a good place to start," Marcus said. She looked at him one more time. Then she held out her hand. And Marcus took it. Above them, the moon filled the sky. Around them, the lanterns of Ornvale burned warm and gold. And somewhere in the records of every civilization that had ever been afraid of her, a new entry was quietly being made. Not by any official body, not by any government or fleet command, but by the universe itself, in the way it always marks the moments that matter. Something had changed. The creature that everyone feared had finally been seen, and the man who saw her was not a hero, not a warrior, not someone special by any measure the world usually respected. He was just a man who couldn't leave a question unanswered. And sometimes that is the most powerful thing a person can be. 3 months after that night on Morveth, Marcus stood before a Human Exploration Corps review board. He was formally charged with unauthorized planetary descent, falsification of survey coordinates, and breach of fleet protocol. He pleaded guilty to all 3. The board recommended suspension of his explorer license for 2 years. His captain, Brennan, testified on his behalf. He stood at the podium and said, in the flat, careful voice of a man who chose every word like he was picking up something fragile, Cole violated protocol. He endangered the mission. I do not excuse what he did. But I also cannot pretend that what he found down there is not the most significant first contact development in human exploration corps history. Because that was what it had become. Viola had not left Morveth after that night. But she had agreed to something she had never agreed to before. She had agreed to a monitored, voluntary communication channel with human xenobiologists. She had agreed to let researchers study Vihari biology, not as a subject, but as a partner in the study. She had provided historical records about Vihari culture that scholars had been trying to piece together for 200 years. And in the process of all of it, she had started something that no extermination order, and no fleet protocol, and no centuries of fear had ever managed to start. A conversation, not just between her and Marcus, but between humanity and a species that had been written off, written out, driven away, and declared extinct by everyone who had ever encountered them. Marcus got his license back in 14 months. He went straight back to Morveth. Viola was at the fountain when he arrived. She did not pretend she wasn't waiting this time. And the lesson buried in all of this, the thing that this story keeps pointing at, no matter how you turn it, is something very simple. Fear has never once, in the history of this universe, produced understanding, but one person willing to stay, willing to ask a question, and wait for the answer, can change everything. If this opened your eyes to what courage really looks like, not the kind with weapons and battle cries, but the quiet, stubborn, steady kind, then stay right here, because the next story is going to take that idea even further. This story had 3 things inside it that are worth carrying with you. The first is that fear is almost always built on a story someone else told you. Viola was feared across the galaxy not because of what she did, but because of what everyone decided she was before they ever met her. The second is that understanding requires presence, not reports, not records, not classified files. You have to show up. You have to stay. You have to be willing to sit with discomfort until it becomes something you can name. The third is the most important one. The bravest thing Marcus Cole did was not getting on his ship and landing on Morveth. It was simpler than that. The bravest thing he did was stay when every instinct in the universe was pointing toward the exit. That is a human superpower. And do not ever let anyone tell you otherwise. If this story landed with you the way it landed with me writing it, hit that like button right now. It takes 2 seconds and it means this channel gets to keep making content like this for you. Subscribe if you haven't yet, because we are building something here. A channel full of Hefi stories that remind you what it actually means to be human, in a universe that does not always make space for us. Leave a comment below with this one question. What would you have done? Would you have stayed in that village, or would you have turned back? There is no wrong answer. I want to know what you actually think. And if you want to keep going right now, the next story is already queued up for you. It is another Hefi story and I promise it is going to hit differently after watching this one. The universe is full of Violas, full of things that were decided before anyone bothered to look closely. The question is always the same. Are you going to run, or are you going to stay? See you in the next one.